Now, an annual cap on migrants is being considered as part of a serious package to slash the numbers, the Immigration Minister has confirmed. Piling pressure on the Prime Minister to crack down on immigration, Robert Jenrick said there were strong arguments for a hard ceiling on arrivals.
But, Mr. Speaker, it's crystal clear that we need to reduce the numbers significantly by bringing forward further measures to control and to reduce the number of people coming here, and separately to stop the abuse and exploitation of our visa system by companies and individuals. So far this year, we've initiated a significant number of investigations into sectors such as care companies suspected of breaching immigration rules. We are actively working across government on further substantive measures and will announce details to the House as soon as possible.
Well, joining us in the studio is TalkTV's chief political commentator, Peter Cardwell.
Hi.
I mean, you know, it is the political story of today, of yesterday, of the whole year. Those eye-watering legal migration figures. We've all spent months, if not years, talking about the boats across the Channel, and now we're seeing inward migration topping 1 million. And, you know, the Immigration Minister saying, a long queue of them saying, look, Rishi Sunak, you've got to get a grip on this.
Well, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is absolutely at the heart of this, because there is a lot of disagreement within the Conservative Party about this. The manifesto in 2019 basically promised to get immigration, legal migration, to below 250,000 now. It's nearly 3 times that with the 745,000 figure we got last week. So this really has proved very, very difficult for the Conservatives and came up at Prime Minister's questions as well.
Now, Sunak stands accused of basically bending to the needs, requirements and desires of big business. Big business like migrants because they can hire them on very low wages. So Jenrick and his gang, the people calling for limitations on the level of our migration, they're saying, well, one thing we could do is stop giving so many visas to low-paid migrants. Sunak appeared to say, yeah, good idea, great idea, and the next day, guess what, announced that more visas for low-paid migrants would be granted. So they're saying, you're not even being straight with us. And he does, you know, we had Ben Loughnane on last week, and he came up with the best answer I've heard about the Tories and the migrant crisis. I said, well, you know, why can't the Tories solve the migrant crisis? He said, because they don't want to.
It's a very interesting one, and I think that there's a lot in that. There's also so many different views. I think James Cleverly has a different view to Suella Braverman, has a different view to Robert Jenrick, has a different view to Rishi Sunak. The Conservative Party is very divided on this, and that issue that you talk about, certainly the Treasury and the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt will say that if you bring in people who have to be paid 100% of, for example, the living wage, rather than 80%, which some migrants can be paid, well, then you're into a situation where that's going to drive up wages, going to drive up inflation, and there are going to be all sorts of other problems. So there are lots and lots of arguments, and really what this needs is leadership, and it just needs a lot of action to be taken, and that action clearly hasn't been taken. And we have this very, very high figure of people who are legally here, never mind stopping the boats, never mind the illegal migration into this country as well.
I mean, we live in extraordinary times, don't we, when the Labour leader gets to accuse the Conservative leader of being the one of mass immigration. Shall we have a listen to what Sir Keir Starmer said in Prime Minister's questions earlier on today?
And this is a government not just in turmoil, in open revolt. The Immigration Minister thinks the Prime Minister is failing because apparently nobody will listen to his secret plan. The former Home Secretary thinks he's failing because of his magical thinking. The current Home Secretary thinks he's failing. He even took time out of his busy schedule insulting people in the North East to admit he agrees with Labour. The Prime Minister seems to be the only person on the Tory benches without his own personal immigration plan. Clearly, his own side don't have any faith in him. Why should the public?
Well, good moment for Mr. Starmer there, or sorry, Sir Keir.
Knight of the Realm.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? Rishi Sunak is just delivering, loads and loads of ammunition to the Labour as we approach the next election.
Well, as Alex correctly says, if you have Labour attacking the Conservatives on immigration. Now, Rishi Sunak certainly hit back and said that, pointed to Keir Starmer's views previously, saying that all immigration law was racist, saying that there were all sorts of problems with it and that he wouldn't have any curbs on immigration and that there should be there should be open borders. The problem is that Keir Starmer's right. There are different plans. There are very, very different ideas. You had Robert Jenrick, who actually used to be seen to be on the left of the Conservative Party, who's now a bit of a person on the right of the Conservative Party, a bit of a hero to the right as Immigration Minister. He is sort of the deputy of the Home Secretary. That used to be the very hardline Suella Braverman, who he was in lockstep with. Now it's James Cleverly, who's a little bit more liberal in the last couple of weeks. His time as Home Secretary hasn't covered himself in glory. He's got himself into a lot of problems, not least.
So he'll be gone next week.
He'd actually have lasted longer than Suella Braverman's first stint, even if that happened, and Grant Shapps. But what's interesting as well within this is that James Cleverly said on his Times interview on Saturday, for example, that he said the Rwanda plan was not the be-all and end-all of it, and that's the illegal side. He's talking about the legal side now and says there's a huge amount more to be done. But we'll see if it is done. The thing is, you're not going to solve this issue by the general election. The Rwanda plan isn't going to go away. They're committed to it, but they haven't got a plan yet. They haven't got a treaty signed. There's lots more to come on this, and this is going to be a big election issue.
Well, yeah, and it seems to me that James Cleverly said, well, lots of other countries are watching us to see if we can make it work because they want to do similar. And you think, well, why don't you just get on and do it?
Other countries have
Send
done
the
it.
plane into the sky. I always think the same with, actually getting into the channel and physically stopping the boats. If we did it, Italy would follow suit. Everyone would, wouldn't they? And what we need, clearly, is some leadership. And I think that is the opinion of Miriam Cates, who spoke to TalkTV earlier today.
Is he the guy to win you the next election, yes or no?
The honest answer to that is I don't know. But I don't know if anybody could win the next election for us unless we go back to the promises of 2019 and fulfil them.
Yeah, so PMQs was a bit dreary today, but yesterday apparently all hell was breaking loose in the Commons, where all these rebel MPs, including Miriam Cates, who's the leader of this new Conservative group, were just literally screaming for some action on the migrant crisis, just saying you're not doing this. And now Miriam Cates was on our colleague Ian Collins' show. He's coming up next, by the way, at 4 o'clock. Is it 3 o'clock? No, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock.
I'm not doing that extra hour, Kev. You're in by yourself, mate.
Ian Collins at 3 o'clock, everyone. Anyway, he interviewed Miriam Cates yesterday, and he asked her about 10 times, is Rishi Sunak the man to lead you to the next election? And she would not answer. This is getting very
It's getting very serious. Divided parties don't win elections. When you have a senior backbencher, someone who's the leader of that new Conservatives group alongside Danny Kruger, you have a big problem for Rishi Sunak. He looked about as uncomfortable as I've ever seen him in the House of Commons today. It was quite a rowdy PMQs. He tried to hit back, but really Keir Starmer landed quite a lot of blows, not least on immigration. And I think that the Conservative Party seemed to be, pardon the pun, but all at sea on this one, and they really need to get a grip soon if they're going to provide some leadership in this issue, because there are so many competing demands, competing ideas, and there appears to be no clear way through it, especially when you're in a situation where the wheels are falling off Rishi Sunak's leadership on this issue at least.
I mean, is it possible, Peter? You understand how legislation is made, enacted, the passage of bills through Parliament, emergency legislation. Is it possible that Sunak could yet pull some kind of rabbit out of the hat before he then calls a general election, using his majority and saying something along the lines of it's a cost of living crisis and we need emergency legislation to tackle this, and actually then do something?
It depends what he goes for. Now, if he signs on the illegal side, on the Rwanda plan, if he signs a treaty with Rwanda, that can go through very quickly. There can be emergency legislation, and that can't be subject to judicial review, for example, with the Supreme Court, because it's a treaty rather than a different type of agreement called a memorandum of understanding. Bit technical, but doesn't really matter. Basically, it can't be challenged. But on the major immigration side, he would need fundamental reform in terms of getting those numbers down. There are so many things you'd need to tackle. I think it's unlikely that will happen by the next election, but I can't see it being a big election issue. The question is whether people trust him on that, whether that moves in the polls, or whether they say, actually, maybe Labour will do a different job, maybe not necessarily a worse job, let's give them a chance, which certainly the polls would indicate at the moment. But there's still about 20% of people who haven't made up their minds.
And among the rebels screaming yesterday in the Commons was the Deputy Tory Chairman, Lee Anderson, leading the charge, Jonathan Gullis, all the Red Wall Tory MPs.
Well, they know this is an issue on which they might live or die politically, and certainly Lee Anderson, who's meant to be inside the tent, has said a number of things and been in a number of different discussions and said a number of things which have become very, very problematic for the leadership of the Conservative Party, yet he remains in that post.
Yeah, well, I just can't imagine what the Tories are going to use as their campaign slogan. They can't do, sensible with the economy, tough on migration. What are they going to say?
Well, actually, Keir Starmer talked in his final question to, he was giving a sort of a reference to the Elgin marbles in ancient Greece, and said that Rishi Sunak had the anti-Midas touch, and he said, please can the Prime Minister just tell us the next thing he's going to tackle, because whatever he tackles, it goes to, and then he looked at James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, and said, perhaps you could finish the sentence for me. A little reference to what he's alleged to have said about Stockton.
I think my theory, I said it yesterday, his new slogan should stop the boats. It should be spot the boat. Go to Dover and spot them coming over in their droves from Calais. So thank you very much, Prime Minister. But come in now, your time is up.
And thank you, Peter Cardwell.
I thought Kevin was calling me the Prime Minister. I thought I got a promotion.
No, that's it.
No. With his
it's only a matter of time, Peter.
With his Irish roots, we've got him pegged to be the next leader.
Couldn't do a worse job than the current one.
We'll see.
With his Irish roots, we've got him pegged as the next leader of the free world. He's off to America to campaign there.
I'm going to be the president. I'm more Irish than Joe Biden, that's for damn sure.